My name is Jordan Finken. I'm the Rare Book and Manuscript Librarian here at the Clow Library in Cincinnati, one of the world's premier Judaica libraries. And it is a pleasure to welcome you today, both in person and virtually, to the library, and an even greater pleasure to be able to introduce today's speaker, the polymath, Haim Rechnitzer, is poet, rabbi, and professor of Jewish thought here at the Hebrew Union College. A vibrant scholar with numerous articles, his most recent book, forthcoming with Hebrew Union College Press, and as co-director of the press, I can say that we are very proud to have a hand in it, and we will love to promote it, is Ars Prophetica, Theology in the Poetry of 20th Century Israeli Poets Avram Chalfi, Shin Shalom, Amir Gaboa, and T. Carmi. But it is his work as a poet that we are here to celebrate and be illuminated by today. And in particular, his third book of poems, Tmunot Reproductions, Pictures and Reproductions, published just last year. It's hot off the presses in 2022. This book represents something of a departure from his first two books of poetry, in that it is a bilingual work produced in collaboration with his wife, Claire. And today's talk, When Words Become the Poetry of Haim Rechnitzer, will doubtless, because it's from Haim, be a machaya. So please join me in welcoming Haim Rechnitzer.
It's always fun to listen words that are said about you and take them with humility. So first, I want to extend special thanks to Abigail Bacon, the librarian, head of public service outreach of the Clow Library, for organizing and promoting this event, and to the Clow Library in particular for hosting this event. And we will have guests, so I want to thank them now, in case I'll forget, that will read poetry and will comment on that. Professor Yehoyada Amir from Hebrew Union College in Jerusalem, my friend and mentor. Professor Jonathan Cohen from Hebrew University of Jerusalem, my colleague and mentor as well. And Dafna Adler of Charles Smith High School for the Arts, a longtime friend. And you can enjoy now the artwork as well. So I want to thank the artist Sari Manole Stempler, who designed the book cover. And of course, to all of you here and on cyberspace. A few words about the title of the poem, of the book. The title, Pictures, Reproductions, Tmunot, Reproductions. Given the fact that this book is bilingual, and more so, the English poems translated from the Hebrew, the more immediate thought or hypothesis will be that the name speaks to the relation between the original Hebrew poems as they refer to pictures here, and to the translated poems as they might be referred to reproductions of the Hebrew poems. That hypothesis might be true, yet limited in its scope at the same time. After all, the translations we present here are not merely copies of the Hebrew poems in English, but a rewriting or producing something that stands in close relations to the Hebrew. However, they are creations in their own rights. In each language, some of the words, more than others, are placed in a different net of meaning and associations from the parallel words in the other language. For example, the Hebrew word davar, that denotes an object or a thing, a speech, as well as a speaker. And from it, we take and produce the word dibrot, the 10 Commandments and the Decalogue. But beyond that, there are words and expressions that, when translated, completely lose their array of references to the other text that the poem speaks to. For example, the connection between Akev, heel, and the name of our forefather, Yaakov, Jacob. At times, this forced us to add a footnote or annotation to the English poem. However, the book title also speaks to the spirit of the poems collected in this book. They are pictures, memories, both visual and mental, of something in the past. However, the remembering reproduces the experience from the past and knits it into the present. We can ask, are we in fact reliving in some kind of permutation our past experiences in the present? Some may say it is in the spirit of Zen Buddhism that we should try to cast away this interference of the past in order to be present. Others stop and acknowledge the complexity of the present situation, as the present experience always inhales some air from the past. In this book, this phenomenon is celebrated. One word about the bilingual character of the book. It seems that after 18 years of living outside of Israel, I acknowledge that I live in two places at once, or forever in none of them. In this sense, I became intimate with the aspect, in Hebrew, bechina, of our forefather Abraham, not in my father's land, yet wandering in and out of my new land. Therefore, I want to read to you a poem from my first book, Mishirei HaGalut HaShlishit, Songs of the Third Exile. You'll be able to follow. I'll read it in Hebrew and then in English. על שפת. עכשיו אתה אומר לי לבוא אל תוך הארץ, לא רק ליד, ולשקוע עמוק כמו צפרדע לכפור החורף. כבר אהיה שוב בבית, הרחק ממולדתי ומבית אבי, שבכלל נולד בארץ אחרת. הרי אי אפשר יותר לחבוק את כל הכיכר הזו. לכן באתם שלושתכם, בדיוק כשאני קודח, לומר לי, כל זה כמו חול על שפת העיניים, וכן, גם אם היא צחקה, לא הייתם צריכים לבדוק את עצבון ימיה, שהרי היא תמיד, תמיד, תמיד אחות קטנה שלי, ושדיה קרים רבודי פרחי דבש, וביניהם אני יוצא לסוח, ולא, לא, לא אתן יד לברכה הזאת. By the rivers. And now you tell me to come to the land and settle like a frog digging in when winter frosts. Then I return home once more, far from my native land and from my father's house. See, he was born in a different country after all. Indeed, it is no longer possible to embrace the entire Jordan Valley. Therefore you came, all three of you, precisely while I'm feverish, to say to me, all this is as sand upon the eyelids. And yes, I say, even though Sarah laughed, you should not have questioned her sorrows. Surely she is forever and ever my little sister, and her breasts are meadows covered with honeyed flowers, and through them I walk meditating. And no, no, I absolutely will not lend a hand to this blessing. I will invite Claire to present the next poem.
Hello. So Chaim asked me to choose and read a poem, which I did, but I want to say a couple words before about the concept of artistic license. So for artists, that's something that's allowed, but for translators, it's something that they're sometimes accused of. With Chaim's work, artistic license or poetic license, it's not just taken, it's pursued. With the kind of gleefulness that I happen to know is an accurate reflection of Chaim's nature. Sometimes it's exasperating. And trying to capture the gleefully defiant nature of his poems, I sometimes found the task to be exasperating. But with Chaim's approval and collaboration in real time, artistic and poetic license were not just the way out. It often makes up for whatever gets lost in translation, even under normal prose conditions. So all that's to say that this was really a true collaboration, and who knows, maybe after this experience, he might take up writing poetry in English. So the poem that I chose is called Birth. Do you want to read the Hebrew?
Yeah, I'll read the Hebrew.
Yeah.
לידה. יורדים תלולים, טלטלים שחורים ברצפה לצד כיסא, וזה לא כואב לי, אמר המספר שהושיב אותי על הדרגש בכיסא הגדול עם האור החום אדום וזיקוקי הניקל של השברולט מהסרטים. מול המראה אני זוקף מבט אל ג'ון ויין, ורוח מזרחית מהרי אדום פורצת לסלון, מניפה את השמלה של אמא קלות, מייבשת לי קצה דמעה, ופיו פיו אני שולף מהר יותר מהספר.
Okay, so here goes. Birth. Curly black locks fall to the floor all around the chair. And it doesn't hurt me, said the storyteller, as he sat me onto the booster in the big saddle brown leather chair with the flash of silver screen Chevrolet nickel. And in front of the mirror, I stare down John Wayne as an eastern wind from the Adom Mountains whooshes into the salon, lightly fanning mother's dress and drying my teary eye, and pew, pew, I draw faster than the barber.
Thank you. All right, we move along. So Professor Jonathan Cohen chose the poem Pamunim, bells. Jonathan, can you unmute yourself and we will also hear you? Just a second.
Okay. Am I unmuted?
Good. All right.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yofi. Okay. Toda rabba. First of all, it's an honor for me to be here. I've been following Chaim's career, both in Jewish thought and poetry, for a long time. But I don't want to take too much time on that. I want to spend all the time I have on the poem. So I'll first read it in Hebrew and then in English, and then with your permission, offer a few comments I have about the poem. Pa'amonim. עוד לא תמו המשחקים בחצר, וכבר השנים מצטופפות להן במרוצת מסדרון בית הספר, ונעצרו לפתע פתח הכיתה, עומדת המורה, עם זרוע אחת נשענת במשקוף הדלת, מקבעת ידה השנייה על מותנה, ורגלה האחת מלחסנת מבט אל עקב אחותה, ושנה שנייה נתקעת בגב הראשונה, והשלישית והרביעית והחמישית כלל לא שמה ליבה, והנה הראשונה נופלת פנים על הרצפה, אני שוכב אפיים בבקשה, הרי כבר כמעט 60, כך אמרו לי, בטל הכל ב-60, ולא נסגרים שערי הונאה. לעת כזאת שדימה זלגה אל סיר העירוב של תבשיל שקדח וקדח בראשי, וגופי שחלה ומשלם יום יום על עבירות לי ולא לי, ודי, אני רוצה קצת בתשובה וחזרה מנעוריי, שיאביבו כבר חלפו עם סמדר ורגליה דילגו קלות על סלעים ומהמורות חיי. אבל יש בי עוד הרבה מור נוטף על כפות, אחותי קלה אחת שנה בשנה, פתחי לי, מורתי, אלומתי, איומתי, תרצתי, תמתי, הדלת הכיתה, ונלמד עוד שנה ועוד שנה, להגיע לשיבה טובה, ברינה נמלא ילקוט שיבולים בדמעות של שמחת משך זרע חיים שלמים, לפני ש... עד כאן עברית. Now English with your permission. Schoolyard games are not yet over, and now the years huddle up along the school halls, halting suddenly at the classroom doorway. The teacher stands with one hand leaning on the doorpost, pinning the second hand to her waist. One leg slants a look to her sister's heel, and the second year slams into the back of the first, and the third and the fourth and the fifth doesn't even notice, and oops, the first falls face down on the floor. I lie in supplication, praying for nearly 60 years, as I've been told 1 out of 60 is nullified. And the gate of prayer for victims of deceit never shuts. When a tear falls into the scalding leftovers pot that stews in my head, and my body falls ill and pays dearly for my transgressions and those of others. But enough, I want an answer, repentance, and a return on my youth to spring forth now, even as it is gone with blossom, her legs skipping lightly over the rocks and potholes of my life. Still I have with me plenty of myrrh to flow through the lock. Oh, my sister, my bride, one for each year. Open the classroom door for me, my teacher, my secret, my menace, my longing, my perfect one. And we will learn year after year until a ripe old age. Joyfully we will find the wheat sheaves sheaves satchel with happy tears of a lifetime's worth of sewing just before. Well, I chose this poem because I have a lot of empathy for a poem written by someone who is beginning to get a sense of the length of his years. And the word Pa'amunim, bells, reminds me, of course, of the poem by John Donne, For Whom the Bell Tolls. And there are 3 lines from that poem I would like to just mention. Any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. The toll tells the story of all of us, just as Chaim's poem does. We get a sense of the passing of time in this being towards death of ours, as Heidegger called it. There's a quick passage of various scenes in the poem, scenes from life, in the sense of how could they have passed so quickly as we get older? Hashanim mitztofefot lahem b'murutzat hamizdaron, or the years huddle up along the school halls. With due credit and honor to Claire, who has made these poems available in English, mamash kol hakavod. Along the school halls, misses in translation, bimrutzat hamizdaron, or in the running of the corridor. B'ivrit amirutza yesh ba paradox. There's a paradox in it. On the one hand, the years run by. On the other hand, one could say the length of the corridor. It is the length of our years that lead us to feel how short the bunches or chapters of our lives ultimately are. We can feel the bunches of 20, 30, 40, even 50 years as if it were in the palm of our hands. The move from the backyard, I don't know if the HUC-JIR is a schoolyard, it could also perhaps be a backyard from even earlier childhood. The move from the backyard to the school is but a jump in the poem. The teacher stands in an ironic position, as if it were waiting for you to reach the end of the run of the merutza. Each year that passes is like a stab in the back from behind. You didn't know. After some years, you haven't paid attention, and they've stabbed each other to death, those years in the back. Once we get close to 60, we feel that each year is more and more batel b'shishim, has less and less weight and meaning as compared to the growing mass of the whole. In fact, batel hakol b'shishim has 2 meanings. On the one hand, it says, all the parts weigh less. On the other hand, it says, the whole seems to mean less when we reach 60. And as far as lo nizgarim sharei ona are concerned, as the sharim of being tricked are not closed, we feel we have been tricked behind our backs as the time has passed without our consent. We thought we were offered a better and a different kind of deal. Until now, much of Chaim's poetry has been infused with a sense of the length of space, distance from home, galut. Here we get, superimposed on this sense, which has not disappeared, we also receive a sadness at the distance of time from early beginnings. Many poems in the collection recount episodes from early life. This realization of the trick and stab in the back brings us to tears. It brought me to tears. And as far as part 2 is concerned, just a few words. We want to return to, jump back to, where our youth sprung forth, and we were full of youthful juices. The teacher now exudes a most attractive femininity. It's not just the door to the class that the youth wants opened. The 60-year-old feels he's got plenty of juices left to start la'atchil with the teacher and relive the past years with her before death comes or before the cycle starts again. The end seems happy, but it is not. It expresses a longing for that which we desire but can no longer be. Finally, a big l'chaim to Chaim for the candor, openness, and longing for life that we find in his poems. Thank you very much. Toda rabba.
Thank you, Jonathan. All right, we move to Yehoyada Amir, friend and mentor, a rabbi, my rabbi, Yoki?
Yeah,
Yaron?
I'm here with you. I'm very glad to be with you. I would have loved to be in Cincinnati at the moment and hug you, but that seems to be impossible. Yes, we walk a very long way together since you started to study for your rabbinate and was ordained and then became a professor of Jewish thought. And I'm sure that this is only one station in a very long journey that will continue. I chose two songs. Both of them are devoted to Dvorah. I'll read them in a minute. In Hebrew, Claire will read them in English. I want to say a word about the word Dvorah. In English, Deborah, but even the English translation makes sure that we speak about Dvorah. Dvorah is a bee. It brings honey. It is a symbol of sweetness. Dvorah is also the female prophet that the Bible is not shy of representing in a very dramatic way, very, very differently than any other female protagonist that we meet in the Bible. She is at the center. And Dvorah, we learn, though it's not said in so many words, is the late mother of the poet. We just heard the word Ima, mother, in another poet that was read here a few minutes ago, but not here. And the way both poems choose to speak about recollection, about relationships, about that which is being said and that which is being understood is at the center of the reason why I chose to read these poems. So I'll read the first one in Hebrew, and then it will be read in English, and then we'll move to the second one. כן, לדבורה. כן, והיא עונה לי, אני כאן. לא שואל כיצד אני שומע, וכנראה שיש בי משאלה, גם אם לא ידעתי שאני בעצם מדבר. הנה את רואה, זה החדר שצבענו, והגינה ביתי מלאה פרחים. את מריחה את שאני מספר לך, בדיוק כמו אז בחודש האחרון, כשתיארתי לך את כל תוכניות הגיזום והשתילה, וכיצד השיח יענה מאור חמה, ובשנה הבאה, את אומרת, יפרח, ושנינו הבנו, בלי לומר מילה, שאפשר להעמיד פנים, גם אם יודעים שהזמן והפרח יפרח, אבל גם לא לך, אבל כן, את אומרת. עכשיו ספר, לאן תיסעו עם הילדים לחופשה? ואת, אני שואל אותך, תבואי גם? קלר?
Yeah. תודה, יוקי, אני אקרא. Yes, to Dvorah. Yes, and she answers, I am here, not asking how I hear. And it seems the wistfulness in me, even though I did not know that in fact I was speaking. Here, you see, this is the room that we painted and the garden. Look, it is full of flowers. And you smell all that I tell you, just as I described it during the last month. All the plans for pruning and planting and how this wisteria will flourish in the sunlight. And next year, it will, you said, blossom. And we both understood without saying a word that we can continue pretending, even knowing that time and the flower will bloom likewise, not for you, but yes. Yes, you say. Now tell me, where will you go with the kids for vacation? And you, I ask you, you come too.
And maybe move to the second poem?
Yeah, I'm afraid that it's, let me see. Ah, it is.
You do have
Right,
it.
thank you.
אזכרה, memorial, לדבורה. ובעצם לאן הלכת כל השנים האלה שאני ואת, לא ידעתי שאת כל שנותיי הלכת בי עד כאן בעצם. לא צריך לחפש אם לא מוצאים. לא, אנחנו מאבדים, לא אמרתי לך. לא אמרתי לך מעולם, וגם את לא, ובכלל. וגם לא העמדנו פנים שלא הלכנו או כן הלכנו אחד מהשני. ולא ממש ידענו לומר את זה על דל שפתיים שנותרו ערלות, למרות שיצאתי מתוכך, לא ידעתי לומר לך שאני. Claire?
Yeah.
Or Chaim?
This one's a bit tricky to read because of the way the lines break or don't break, but this is typical of Chaim's poetry. I'll give it my best shot. Memorial to Dvorah. So where in fact did you go all these years that I and you and I did not know how much you went this far within me all my life? In fact, one does not need to search if one does not find. No, we do not lose. No, I never said to you, and neither did you. Oh well, and we did not even pretend that we did not go or that we did go away from each other, and we did not even know how to say it with our thin lips that were left hardened. Even though I came out from you, I did not know how to say to you that I.
It is very clear, the chronological order of those two poems is very clear. One speaks to an ill, dying person. The other speaks to, but really about, a dead figure. And there is one very interesting connection between the two. The words להעמיד פנים, to pretend. In the first poem that we read, we could, not the one that you can see now, but the one that was read before, we read, שנינו הבנו בלי לומר מילה, שאפשר להעמיד פנים. One can pretend. It is possible to pretend as if death is not approaching, to pretend as if future that I'm telling you about will be really our shared future. I talk like that, you talk like that, and we may pretend together. And of course, this pretending has nothing to do with real pretending. It's really a way to speak without words about that which we choose on both ends of the discussion, kind of a long distance discussion via WhatsApp, via Zoom, something that bridge distances. We choose not to say we both know that we both know, but we pretend. And the second poem speaks very much about the same situation in a different retrospective, in a different perspective. And it says in a different way the same thing that was said before. לא אמרתי לך מעולם, וגם את לא, ובכלל, וגם לא העמדנו פנים שלא הלכנו או כן הלכנו אחד מן השני. I didn't say, you didn't say, we didn't pretend that we did or didn't go far away from each other. And I never knew how to speak. And this kind of very intimate pretending on the one hand, and the distant, almost alienated, not pretending, are the two poles of that which this book, I think, altogether speaks about. It's not only bilingual. Poetry is being translated from one language into another quite often. a lot of English poetry and other languages is being translated into Hebrew. Some Hebrew poetry in the last decades is being translated into English. This is a bilingual because it belongs to two poles of life, to belongings, to landscapes, and really to languages. And I think that which the entire book is telling us about and encountering us with, pretending and not pretending, daring and not daring to say that we didn't dare, all of that is in the book. And last one remark. When I read the last words of this poem that we see now, לא ידעתי לומר לך שאני, I had a very, very strong connotation, which I have no clue whether it is my connotation or it is intended by the poet, to a very famous poem by Dan Pagis, a Holocaust poem, written, it's called Written in Pencil in the Sealed Wagon that goes to the concentration, to the death camp. And it ends up, the speaker in this poem is a mother, Chava, the mother of humanity, the mother of the two sides of humanity, Cain on the one hand, the symbol of the murderer, and Hevel on the other hand, with her approaching their death together. And she ends up saying, אם תראו את בני הגדול, קין בן אדם, תגידו לו שאני. If you will see my older son, Cain, the son of Adam, tell him that I, and here the poem ends. And I think that the contexts are very, very different. Of course, one speaks about natural death, about that which we all experience as living creatures, and that which awaits us as mortal beings. And the other, of course, of the greatest possible catastrophe of human being. And nevertheless, this intimate momentum in Pagis' poem, ending up with her speaking about her son, the older son, who that is going to murder them. And she only can say, Tagidu lo shani, tell him that I. And Chaim ends up the words to his late mother that he cannot speak anymore to. למרות שיצאתי מתוכך, לא ידעתי לומר לך שאני. Even though I came out from you, I didn't know how to say to you that I thank you.
Thank you. Now we invite Dafna Adler to read and to say some things about the poem or about the book. Dafna, I guess you will read the Hebrew, Claire will read the English, and Dafna will speak in Hebrew, but we got the text and we have it in translation, so we will read it in Hebrew too. Dafna, you are.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. Just a small change. Shmulik here will read the poem and I will comment in Hebrew. He will share the mission.
Yeah, I got a job also, Chaim.
Yeah, just a second, Shmulik. Now put the, yeah, we can hear you. שומעים אותך.
יופי, מצוין.
So just one word, Shmulik. So this is a great surprise for me. We are together, Shmulik and I, since I was 3 months old, and he was 1 day. So it's really an amazing moment. Okay.
Yeah, he's bigger than me in 3 months, and you know, I know it all the years that he's bigger from me in 3 months.
Sorry.
He's elder. Yes, I know he's elder.
Yeah, younger.
Chaim and I grew together in the same street, block by block. We studied in the same kindergarten, in the same elementary school, in the same high school, and I can feel, I can see, I can smell, I can imagine all the things that written in this book, really. So thank you so much, Chaim. כך קראו לה חמדה, והיא הייתה גם וגם, כי גם מי לא בעצם היה בא, אם היה יכול לבוא לשחק בימים של רחובות מעוטי רכבים ורבי פיסות עפר, בין הבתים ובנים ובנות ואבות, שהולכים עם קולות בישולים במחבתות מהבילות, של זבתות שקוראות בחלון גם, ואני קראתי לה חמימה, וחמימבה, וחמילה, וחמוקה, עד שקרקרה לי הבטן מדי. וגם לה, כי גם מי לא בעצם היה רעב בימים ההם, שהלחם בשפע, והבשר היה בא במעוטי ימים, אולי בשישי גם. היא אמרה לי שאמא שלה תעשה הערב קציצות מפירורי לחם מתוק. היה הטעם של חמימה, חמדה, גם וגם.
Wait, clarity can't put it back.
So before Dafna says something, I'll read this in English, and then she's going to speak in Hebrew, and I'll translate that. This is one of the examples of the poems where we had to make a lot of artistic license, because there's a series of poems that reference a lot of Chaim's old girlfriends. Friends who were girls. Yeah. But there's a lot of play on the meaning of their names, and it just didn't work. So we chose a name that picked up on the meaning of the name and then ran with that. So Chemda became Desiree. And the title is, she was called Dis. She was called Desiree, and she was this and that, because who wouldn't come play if he could play back in the days of streets with few cars, but plenty of dusty stretches between the tenements, and the boys and girls and fathers who walked to the sounds of grandmother's steaming skillets, calling from windows. But I called her Desi, and Dizzy, and Daisy, and Doozy, until my stomach started grumbling too much, and hers as well. For who in fact was not hungry back when bread was in abundance, but meat appeared rarely, maybe on Fridays. She told me that her mother too will make leftover breadcrumb patties, so sweet was the taste of Desi, Desiree, this and that.
Okay, so now I'll switch to Hebrew. אז ככה. זה לא סוד שמשוררים מתגעגעים, ושהזיכרון והגעגועים הם חומר פורה ואינסופי לשירה. בהינף ראשון צצים בתודעתי 3 מושגים מיני רבים, שדרכם אנו מגדירים את היחס התודעתי-נפשי שלנו אל אותו עבר סובייקטיבי. נוסטלגיה, מלנכוליה, או לחילופים, אותן מראות שתייה, כפי שביאליק כינה אותם. מראות ילדות בראשיתיים שהיו מעין התגלויות לילד המשורר, והם ממשיכים לחיות בתודעתו כמעיינות של שפע יצירתי. בעיניי שירו של חיים, כך קראו לה, משתייך במובנים רבים לסוג האחרון, אם כי הוא עושה זאת בדרכו הפרחחית והמרנינה במיוחד. אמנם הזכרנו שפע, אבל השיר כזיכרון של המציאות ההיסטורית שהייתה בירושלים בשנות ה-60 של המאה הקודמת מתאר תקופה של מחסור. רחובות מעוטי רכבים ורבי פיסות עפר, או מי בעצם לא היה רעב בימים ההם, או הבשר היה בא במיעוטי ימים. אלא שכל חוויות המחסור החומרי הזה אינה גורע דבר מעוצמת השפע שאותה חי וחווה הילד המשורר, שעבורו כל הקיום הוא גם וגם, וכל מחסור הוא מקפצה לגילוי של שפע אחר וחדש. משיכתו של הילד לעולם עזה ופתוחה, והיא פוגשת את הריבוי והמשחק החוגג והקרנבלי שבחוץ. בנים ואבות שהולכים עם קולות של בישולים ומחבטות מעבילות של סבתות שקורות בחלון, והאוכל הפשוט שנחווה כמעט באופן אגדי, בימים ההם שהלחם בשפע. ובמוקד של כל השפע הזה, המשיכה אל הילדה חמדה, ששמה הוא מהות השיר, המשיכה אל חמדה שהילד הכיר במשחקי הרחוב, שכל הווייתה היא רצף של גילויים חושניים של חמדה ועונג, בטן מקרקרת וקציצות לחם מתוק עם טעם גן עדן ממטבח אחר. ובמוקד הזורם של השיר, בשורה האמצעית והמהותית ביותר, בורא וחוגג הילד המשורר עם המילים שממלאות את הפה במשמעויות קסם, מצלול, עברית שופעת וחושנית, שאי אפשר לתאר אלא רק לחזור אליה. ואני קראתי לה חמימה וחמימבה וחמילה וחמוקה. וכשאנחנו בתוך השירה שבשורות האלה, גם נושא הזיכרון הופך להיות רק פלטפורמה לדבר עז יותר, שהוא חום, חיות, חיים. איך אמרתם שקוראים למשורר הנהדר של השיר הזה?
So I'm going to read Dafna's word. You can pretend that I'm Dafna. It's no secret that poets experience longing, and that memories and longing are an infinite and fruitful source of material for them. There are many ways that we can define our conscious relationship with our subjective past, but three that come to mind for me are nostalgia, melancholia, and what Chaim Nachman Bialik referred to as wellsprings of imagination, meaning early childhood experience that were like revelation to the child poet, and which continue to live in the adult's consciousness as an abundant source of creativity. To me, it seems that Chaim's poem, She Was Dis, belongs in many ways to the third kind, but in its own mischievous and delightful way. I mentioned abundance, but the poem as a recollection of an historic reality of Jerusalem in the 1960s describes an era of scarcity, streets with few cars but plenty of dusty stretches, or who in fact was not hungry back when, and meat appeared rarely. Still, all this material scarcity does not take anything away from the wealth of experience felt by the poet child, for whom existence was both this and that. All the scarcity is but a jumping board to discovering a new and different kind of abundance. The child's attraction to the world is strong and open as it meets with the multiplicity and celebratory carnival-like games of the external world. Boys and girls and fathers who walk to the sounds of grandmother's steaming skillets calling from the windows, and simple food that was wondrously experienced as back when bread was in abundance. And in the midst of all this abundance is Desiree, whose name is the essence of the poem. The attraction to Desiree, whom the boy knew from playing in the street, is full of sensuality, grumbling stomachs, and the longed-for taste of sweet bread patties cooked in another's kitchen. And yet at the center of all this, the middle and most suggestive line, the child poet creates and celebrates with words that fill his mouth with meaning, wonder, sound, in a Hebrew that is rich and sensual and that cannot be described, just repeated. And I called her Desi, and Dizzy, and Daisy, and Doozy, Chamimba, V'chamila, V'chamuka. When we are in the poetry of these lines, the subject of the recollection becomes just a platform for something more vital, animated, alive, Chom, Chayut, Chaim, all of which happen to be a play on Chaim's name, his life. And Dafna asks, who was it that wrote this poem?
Hi, thank you. This is indeed a celebration. I want to close with one poem that refers to a poet quintessential, the Hebrew poet Chaim Nachman Bialik, which was mentioned already, I think twice, if not more. So I will read 3 verses from Chaim Nachman Bialik's poem in both languages, and then I will end with my poem that corresponds with it. אל הציפור. שלום רב שובך ציפורה נחמדת, מארצות החום אל חלוני, אל קולך כי ערב מנפשי חלתה, בחורף בעוזבך מעוני. זמרי, ספרי, ציפורי היקרה, בארץ מרחקים נפלאות, גם שם בארץ החמה, היפה, תרבנה הרעות, התלאות. התעיסי לי שלום מאחי בציון, מאחי הרחוקים הקרובים, או מאושרים, הידו ידוע, יעזבול, או עזבול, מכאובים. We couldn't capture the rhythm. This is a fusion between sort of an official translation and a few changes. To the bird. Welcome back, lovely bird, from hot lands to my window. I yearn for your sweet song in winter after you left me at home. Sing of miracles far away. Is there, dear bird, tell me, much evil there too, and pain in that land of warmth, of beauty? Will you bring me a word from my brothers in Zion? My brothers, the far, the near? Oh, the happy ones, do they know that I suffer, or suffer and hurt? אל הציפור. חולת געגועים לאן ציפורי הגינה שלי פורסות עם ליל, אבל כעת עדיין בוקר. ועוד אני יושב אל החלון, מזמר ומספר שלום הארץ, ומה רבו הערים בינינו. זרי פרחים ששלחתי מזרעי דמעותיי המקפקבות על דף עקבות רגליי, מי ימנה מספר נדודיי. בשנת ליל אני עף אל ארץ השקט והתומר, ועם שחר שב אל מעוני. Excuse me. To the bird. Lovesick to where my garden birds depart at nightfall. But now it is still morning, and I sit by the window humming the story of that country, and how vast the mountains between us, the flowers that I sent from seeds of tears perforating lines along a page, my tracks. Who will count my wanderings? Slumbering at night, I fly to the land of the almond and the palm, and with dawn return to my dwelling. That was the end of reading poetry. We have a few minutes if there are questions, comments, wishes. If not, we will close with that. With this. Yeah.
Question. Are there any topics that you feel like you won't write about because they're too personal? Not that you have to share them up,
Yeah.
because that would sort of be, but do you feel like when you're writing, there are things that are off limits, or do you just write whatever you're feeling about any memories?
So it's true that the poems are nourished and feed off personal experiences, but I hope that when I write, they transcend it, which means that, okay, for Shmulik and my friends that know me intimately, they can link to the person, the author. But I would not have published the book if I thought that you need that. So this is a long way to say that no, nothing is off limit, because that's the freedom that writing poetry allows. I can not hide behind, but I can always transcend my own biography. And that's my wish, that even my closest friends will read that and enjoy both like chemda, gam vegam, this and that. Yeah. Yeah. Jennifer.
Do you feel your poetry the same way in Hebrew as you do in English, or English as you do in Hebrew? Do they have a different feeling to you personally?
So to me personally,
Maybe repeat it. Did they hear?
yeah,
the line?
everyone heard. So the question is whether I feel intimate or I feel the same with English, with the poems in English or when they are in Hebrew. It's not the same, not just because it's different language. It's also not it's not true to say mother tongue because that was Yiddish, but it's not my own native language. And my imagination and connections to different texts is much richer in Hebrew. So the English is a sort of, I'm looking at that from a distance, but working on this translation with Claire gave me a fortunate opportunity to actually take the step back from the Hebrew, my Hebrew, and look at the Hebrew as the Hebrew of the poem. And sometimes it was hard because then you have to give up some of the allusions and the word plays that are so woven into my own life as a poet. And also that's what interests the readers, my life as a poet. So I always see the differences and I weigh the prices, but I'm so happy that I finally, as I said in my opening words, I finally can be read and read in both languages. So this celebration is much greater than the price that we pay for the translation. It is true that in the introduction to the book, the Hebrew introduction to the book, I speak to those that can read both languages. And that's why the introduction is different. And I think that those that can look at the bilingual, the page point by point, poem side of the poem will benefit or will celebrate or whatever, enjoy, hopefully, the most. But I really hope and pray that if you just read one poem, just the Hebrew or just the English, they stand independently. So that was our task together. Yeah. Maybe one more or not. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite poem?
No. I mean, there are poems that, well, are more emotional for me. And I think that the poems that are about my mother and her passing is very emotional when I hear that, when I read that. But that's me. But that doesn't mean that I favor that. I hope that all of them are my kids and I love them all. Okay, thank you.